It is Sunday night right now. For someone reading this, they know exactly what is coming. The specific dread that arrives around 8 p.m. The stomach that tightens. The weekend that was never quite long enough. The arms set for tomorrow that already feels like a threat. Monday morning is the most universally hated moment in modern human life. And for 300,000 years it did not exist. Not because ancient humans were lazy. Not because life was easier. But because the entire structure of time that produces Monday morning, the week, the schedule, the boss, the commute, the alarm, the specific misery of belonging to someone else's timetable for 8 hours a day was invented, recently, by people who needed workers, not by biology, not by nature, not by anything the human body was designed for. Ancient humans woke up every single morning the same way, free. In 1966, anthropologist Richard Lee arrived in the Kalahari Desert with a notebook and a stopwatch. He spent 3 years living with the Juhansi Bushmen, tracking exactly how they spent their time, every hour, every activity, every day. He came back with a number that the academic world did not know how to process: 15 hours per week. That was the total amount of time the Juhansi spent on what Lee classified as work. Hunting, gathering, food preparation, tool maintenance. Everything required to sustain life in one of the harshest environments on Earth. 15 hours per week. The average modern worker does that before Wednesday. Lee published his findings in 1968. Economist Marshall Solins read them and wrote something that became one of the most quoted lines in anthropology. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not because they had wealth, because they had time. More free time per day than any modern human will experience in their working life. The finding was not a quirk of the Kalahari. Subsequent research across hunter-gatherer populations in Africa, Australia, and the Americas found the same pattern. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe at Cambridge University spent decades studying the Hadza of Tanzania and found comparable numbers. 2 to 3 hours of what could be called work per day. The rest, unscheduled, undirected, belonging entirely to themselves. 2 to 3 hours, then free, every day, including Monday. So what did they actually do with the rest? The answer is not what modern productivity culture would recognize as valuable. And that is precisely what makes it so devastating to look at directly. They talked for hours, every day, about everything and nothing simultaneously. Who went where, what someone said 3 days ago, a joke that was still funny, a memory that needed telling again, the specific texture of daily conversation that modern life has compressed into stolen minutes between obligations. Anthropologist Polly Wisner at the University of Utah spent years recording the conversations of the Juhansi across different times of day. Her data showed that casual conversation, not planning, not logistics, not anything productive, consumed multiple hours of every single day. This was not wasted time. This was the operating system of the community. Who could be trusted? Who had been generous recently? Who was struggling and needed watching? Who had an idea worth hearing? Every piece of social information that held the group together as a functioning unit was processed and updated through conversation that looked, from the outside, like people simply talking. No agenda, no meeting notes, no agenda items to get through before the next call. Just people who knew each other, with time using it to know each other better. They played, not children, adults. Researcher Stuart Brown at the National Institute for Play spent decades documenting play behavior across cultures and throughout human history. His research found something that modern work culture has never fully reckoned with. Play is not the opposite of work. Play is a biological drive as fundamental as sleep or hunger. The human brain requires it, not occasionally, regularly, as a structural feature of a healthy life. Hunter-gatherer adults played daily, games without prizes, music without audiences, dancing that served no purpose except the experience of dancing, laughter that produced nothing except the specific neurological state that laughter produces. They were not playing because they had nothing better to do. They were playing because play is what healthy humans do when the conditions of survival are met, and the day belongs to them. Modern life met the conditions of survival and then filled the remaining hours with more work, with productivity, with optimization, with the specific anxiety of unused time that modern culture has successfully convinced people to feel guilty about. Ancient humans had no word for wasting time, because time was not something you owned on behalf of someone else. It was just yours. They rested, completely, without guilt. This is the part that is hardest for modern people to fully absorb. Anthropologist Herman Poncer at Duke University spent years studying the daily activity patterns of the Hadza. What he found about their rest behavior was as striking as what he found about their work behavior. The Hadza rested deliberately. Midday rest was not laziness. It was a structural feature of daily life. The heat of the day was not fought against. It was accommodated. Bodies were horizontal. Eyes were closed or watching the sky. The specific quality of stillness that modern humans can only approximate in expensive wellness retreats was simply what midday looked like. No one was checking their phone. No one felt behind. No one was optimizing the rest period by listening to an educational podcast. They were just resting. The human body is not designed for continuous output. It operates in cycles. Effort followed by recovery. Activity followed by stillness. Engagement followed by genuine disengagement. Poncer's research showed that the Hadza's bodies, operating within this natural cycle, maintained metabolic profiles that modern medicine associates with exceptional health, not because they ate a specific diet or followed a specific exercise protocol, because they lived inside a daily rhythm that matched what their biology was built for. Modern work culture eliminated the midday rest, compressed the recovery periods, and then expressed surprise at the epidemic of burnout, chronic fatigue, and stress-related illness that followed. The Hadza could have told them why. They just were not consulted. They made things, not for profit, not for productivity, for the specific human satisfaction of making something from nothing with their own hands. Tools shaped to fit the specific grip of the person who would use them. Beads carved and strung with a patience that served no survival function whatsoever. Cave walls painted with images that no one outside the group might ever see. Researcher Ian McGilchrist at the University of Edinburgh has spent decades studying the relationship between creativity, making, and psychological health. His research found that the act of making, physical, craft-based, hands-on creation, engages neural systems that abstract cognitive work does not reach. Systems associated with presence, absorption, the specific state of being entirely inside an activity, rather than partially present, while simultaneously managing everything else. Ancient humans made things every day, small things, useful things, beautiful things, things that had no purpose except that making them felt like exactly the right use of an afternoon. No one was measuring their output. No one was evaluating their productivity. No one was asking whether the time spent carving a handle could have been allocated more efficiently. It was just an afternoon, and they filled it the way humans fill afternoons when no one is telling them what afternoons are for. They were with their children. Not scheduled quality time. Not the specific modern performance of parenting that happens in the hours between work and sleep and is shadowed by the guilt of everything else competing for attention just with them. Continuously, unremarkably, the way you are with someone when you live inside the same unscheduled day. Ancient children did not go somewhere else while adults worked. They were present for everything, watching, imitating, participating at whatever level their current capability allowed. The 3-year-old beside her mother as her mother gathered. The 8-year-old following the hunters at a distance. The adolescent being taught skills not in a classroom, but in the actual moment and place where the skills were needed. Modern work separated adults from children for the majority of the waking day and called it civilization. The children went to institutions, the adults went to offices, and everyone involved felt some level that something was wrong with this arrangement, without being quite able to name what it was or how recently it had been invented. It was invented about 200 years ago. Before that, for 300,000 years, the adult and the child occupied the same day. Here is the question that the research cannot fully answer, and that no one in the productivity conversation ever asks directly. What did it feel like? Not the activities, not the hours, not the caloric output or the social function or the anthropological significance. What did it feel like to wake up every morning with nothing that you owed to anyone except the people you loved? To have a day that was not already spoken for before it began? To rest without guilt, talk without purpose, make without measurement, play without justification? Researcher Matthew Killingsworth at Harvard University spent years studying human happiness using a real-time experience sampling method, contacting thousands of people throughout their days and asking what they were doing and how they felt. His research produced one finding that sat above all others. People are happiest when their mind is where their body is, when what they are doing is what they are thinking about, when presence is complete rather than divided. when the activity contains them entirely, rather than being performed alongside three other mental threads. Hunter-gatherers, living in a world with no notifications, no competing obligations, no background anxiety of a schedule that extends infinitely in both directions, were present in a way that modern humans access only in their best moments and spend significant money trying to recreate. They were not enlightened. They were not spiritually advanced. They were not doing anything that required special effort or special wisdom. They were just there. In the morning that belonged to them. In the afternoon that no one had claimed. In the evening that arrived without a meeting at the end of it. Every morning was the same. No alarm, no dread, no Sunday night stomach. Just the sun coming up on a day that was entirely theirs. The alarm was invented. The dread came with it. Neither of them were supposed to be here.